No.
What is the effect?
Of course, I don't want it to get too big.
We've got to start. If he's got to go, we've got to start. Okay. Lech Lecha. This week's Sedra, I believe. Test 9. The Sarah Ashes of Ram Loyal, the Loy, she didn't bear children to Avram. Lo Shivkas mitzvah Shema Hagar, and she had a maidservant called Hagar. But Sarah el Avram, and she said to Avram, Hine no atzarani, Hashem in this, Hashem has stopped me from having a Shon Bono in this. You've come to my Shivka, Olai Ibonim Imena, maybe I will be built from her. But Yishma Avram Lekon Sarah, so he did what he was told. Betichas Sarah Ashes of Ram is Hagar, says. Sarah takes Avram's wife, Hagar, the mitzvahs, Shivka, her Shivka, Mikate says Hashem after 10 years, L'Shebes Avram Be'eretz Canaan, Be'eretz Canaan, B'tita Nois Avram gives Avram Isha Lod Isha, and she became a wife. V'yava el Hagar v'tahar. So he consummated the marriage, and she became pregnant. Matera is Harasa, and she saw her pregnancy. B'tekal Gevirta V'eneha, and her mistress became light, or lighter. Well, it's a bad word. Tikal. Her relationship with her mistress was diminished, and she thought, okay, something like that. Okay, Rashi says, "Betiko geverta beineha, Omra sorazu ein sosro kigeloleho." She said to people, and the Medrash Rabbah says that's when people came to see her. I'll see exactly how that means in a second. Then she says, "This Sora, you think she's such a holy person? That's what she appears to be, but I know." It's not quite like that. Mara atzma ki'ilo hi tzedekas. She gives the appearance of being a tzedekas. Ve'en tzedekas, but she's not. Shelo zochsa her Ryan called Shonim Alana, because she was not zoikas of a child all these years. Ani nisbarti me'bir rishona. But from the first act of consummation, I became pregnant, which generally, as I'll say, is an impossibility. But let's not go into that, because that'll take us in a totally different direction. So, as a
improbability or impossibility?
Impossibility, but not. Well, if you go into it in any depth, there are ways to guarantee that it will.
Most of them.
If the woman removes her basulim herself beforehand, then she can. But if the first act of consummation is going to be the act, as it were, does that, then that's apparently going to not produce a pregnancy. Okay, fine. But anyway, let's not get too. What?
In this case, could have been nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. So then it says, or bad actually. So what happens next is, I gave this woman my shivka into your breast, your chest, really. And I see that she's become pregnant, and I have become diminished in her eyes. Hashem should judge between you and I. Now, we don't have time to go into it, but there's a wonderful Lomdish Orachaim HaKodesh there, who's talking about exactly what the status was of Sarah's claim, was that I gave her to you, that she should still remain mine, my Shivka. Whereas you have taken her to be a wife and released her from that status. There's a whole thing there, but because it seems strange that she takes the complaint to Avram. However, the Medrash Rabbah says there that really it would just simply not be covered for her, for the Rosh Hashiva, as it were, to start shouting at the bocher. You get somebody else to go and say your behavior is inappropriate, in this case her husband. So your shivka remains in your hands. Do whatever you think is appropriate. And Sarah v'ta'aneho. How would you translate v'ta'aneho? Treated her harshly. Well, let's stick with that. Well, not because there's a million pshatim in that. But she treated her harshly, and she fled. And then Vayimsa Malach Hashem El Ein Hamayim. So you know what happens. B'midbar Al Ein B'derech Shur B'yom Hagar Shivka Sarah Ein Zebos V'Hanal Hatanechli. So as she's on the journey, and there's an angel that bumps into her and says, "Where are you going? What's this all about?" And she says, "I'm running away from my mistress." Malach Hashem Shuvi Al Gebetechno, go back to your mistress V'Hisanu Tachas Yadeho, and be treated harshly by her. And you're going to have so many children this is what we've got to count these children. You're pregnant, but you have a child, but Karasa Shema Yishmael, and you should call him Yishmael. Yishma Hashem es oneich. Hashem has heard or the harshness of your treatment. Okay, good. So that's what the story is. What we're going to be looking at tonight. So the real question is, why did Sarah treat Hagar in such a way? So the Ramban, I'm sorry, I'm taking this away with the Ramban. The Ramban says famously here, he says that Sarah and Sarah treated her harshly and she ran away. Chota imeno be'inoi hazeh. Sarah imeno, our mother Sarah, has made a mistake. This was a mistake, doing this and treating her so harshly. Begam Avrohom anicho la'asas kain, and Avrohom also made a mistake in allowing her to treat her harshly. Mishal Hashem as any of a nosan law ben she'yi per odam la'onav zera la'Avrohom Sarah v'kol mini enui. And that was why Hashem listened to this, her pain. But nosan law es ben he gave her a son. She per odam la'onav zera Avrohom. They'd be a wild man to afflict and to cause pain to the seed of Avram, the Sarah v'kol mini enui, with all sorts of terrible things. So that would be, as it were, the current state of affairs, and the conflict between the Jewish world and the world of Ishmael is, as it were, goes all the way back to this, predates today, and it goes all the way back to this thing here. So that's what the Ramban says.
There's because that she treated her harshly.
Yes, according to the Ramban. And the Ramban's not the only person to say that. Others say the same thing. I mean, I don't know why everybody says the Ramban, but there's two or three. I think that even Ezra says the same thing as well. Immediately, this will be very upset. This is Chaim Vital, and he Sefer Eitz Das V'Toiv. He says here, he quotes Tehillim Kufkov Dalad, Shira Malas Luli Hashem Shohoyolano. If only Hashem would be with us. Kavar Yidati Gol is Eina Eladat Luli Hashem Shohomad Alena Odom, when a man stands against us. So he says the following: Kavar Yidat is well known. Ki Gol is Eina Eladat. The exiles of the Jewish people were 4 in all. I mean, Avram Avinu was shown that by the Bris Bein Besarim, and Yaakov Avinu was shown that when it was the ladder going up to heaven and the angels going up and down. There were 4 angels, and of the angels who were the representative angels of the nations who would afflict the Jewish people. Bavel Mada Yovan Ve'edim. Okay. Abel Oid Asidim, but says the Chaim Vital, in the future there's going to be Yesh Liyas Ba'achris Yama, by the end of all the Golus process, a Golus Yishmael, a 5th Golus Yishmael. You can find it in Perkei Rabbi Elazar, and you can find it in Midrashim of Sefer Zar. It's like Parshas Lech Lecha, at the end of Parshas Lech Lecha, so because of this very theme. Rabbi Inyan, Moshe Dom, another Sefer. But Bishom, Parshas Lech Lecha, Omar, Ki Yishmael Yosef ben Avram. Since he is a ben Avram, Yishmael is the son of Avram, V'nimol, and he's had Bris Milah. Nikro Para Odom. V'loi Odom Gomer, he's called a Para Odom, but not an Odom Godel. That's interesting. It's called a Para Odom because, of course, there's 2 parts to Bris Milah. There's the Priya and there's the Milah. He had Milah, but he didn't have Priya. So it's called a Para Odom.
Why?
So, what? Why didn't he have Milah?
Don't give him a blessing.
Sorry?
Why didn't he have the whole thing?
It seems to be that the Iker distinction of Bris, because in America it's very common for non-Jewish people to boys to be circumcised simply as a matter of hygiene, and we know that actually is hygienic. Because it can cause all sorts of problems during married life for the woman if the man's not.
That's how Yosef proved who he was. Also.
Sorry?
That's how Yosef proved who he was.
Right.
It was instituted by Yeshua.
Sorry?
Pri was instituted by Yeshua.
Right.
The Jews didn't do Pri either.
Well, that's not so clear. Midrashim this one seems to imply that he wouldn't be the exact same thing. Okay. Anyway, Pera Odom Veloy Odom Gomer, so he's not complete Odom, Mibnei Shemol Velo Pera, because he's Mol Velo Pera, so that would seem to imply that the others were. Abel Shardal of Goliath, now the other 4 Goliaths that we just mentioned, Hain, that is Meshalas Elchaz, the Meshalas, they are likened to various animals. So the Gamel was Bovel, and the Shofan, that's a badger, I believe. That was Modai, they are Nevis, the hare, that was Greece, and of course, Edom is down in the Chazir. So they're all likened to animals, but it's only Shmuel, who's like an Odom, because he's a para Odom, because Paul says he's a para Odom. And what a man can do is obviously much worse than any animal. So that's why he goes on to say that this is the worst golus of all. And the Ramban says that worst golus was caused because of this incident. That's the Ramban Shita and other Rishonim. The Barbanel disagrees. And he's not the only one to disagree with the Ramban and the other Shitas. So we've got two Shitas in this. Why she did what Sarah did what she did. And he says, he quotes the Rambam, because of the Rambam, Sarah chota b'zeh, begam Avram she'aniach la'asayis. That Sarah made a mistake in this, and Avram made a mistake in allowing it to take place, this inui. Be'enadav akein, and that's not so. Ki gevar kosav midyoni ha'tshetikin ha'matvo b'mida p'kusav ha'hu b'chatoi v'achricha b'tzadam. And again, come on, Shigram actually, and he goes on to explain that the purpose was, because the tachlis time, the whole purpose was for the tachlis. I mean, sometimes you have to be strict with your children. I once told you the story of Ramosh Shmuel. Remember, just come up recently, Ramosh Shmuel, but the bocher in the yeshiva had done something wrong, so he said he was being thrown out. The boy's crying and throwing him. No, and he was an older boy waiting outside the room. That's right. He drove into the train station. Drove into the train. So it's England. And so he drove into the train station, but of course the message was tell him to come back and ask, and back and ask. And the Rambam in Halacha says quite clearly that if you do something wrong, and somebody asks you, and you ask somebody for Makila, if they don't forgive you 3 times, then the whole thing is that if they could have forgiven you, they don't forgive you, then sin becomes them. But you've got to ask them 3 times. What if it's your Rebbe? 1,000 times. Why would he forgive you? Right? Because that maybe the judgment, the estimation, somebody who knows you would know that it might need this level of rejection, this level of fear that you're not going to be. But today in yeshiva, as a boy who misbehaved very badly. And so I've got a new weapon. I simply said, your name? And he told me his name, so I wrote it down and I wrote it all right down. Is your father a mister or a rabbi? Rabbi. What's your home phone number? And he said, I said, good. I said, no, get out. And I'll be discussing this with your father. And he came straight as soon as the lesson. I'm really sorry. Fantastic, right? Now, it was a bit cruel, but it's what he needed, right? You have to make the cheshbon, is this going to work? So the estimation, according to Barbanel, was this was necessary in order to bring her back to where she is. I'm not sure if I'm going to tell you what Rebbe Cohen has to say on this. It may be a bit too Kabbalistic, but maybe I might. Right. However, if we've got 2 shitas, one which says it was a mistake and one says it wasn't a mistake, of course, both we have to assume are right. It's just that looking at from a different perspective. So there's certainly some aspect in it that, according to the Ramban and the other shitas, was maybe a little bit too much. And the other one saying, no, there's some aspects in it which was too much, but it was appropriate for it to be too much. So there's a beautiful sefer called Lekha Sikhas Musa. So Lekha Sikhas Musa, Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac Sher, Rosh Hashiva of Slobodka. So he says, before we understand exactly what's going on here, this is not simply, the way we've read it till now, frankly, is the way you would teach it to children, or the non-Jewish world, which doesn't have access to the Talmud or Midrashim, or not easily, would understand the story. So the Basora, and she had a maid servant, she gave a wife, and she was cheeky, and she was chutzpahdik, and he said, he said to Hagar, what's your father's name? Is it Rabbi Paro or Mr. Paro? And that's his number in Mitzrayim, etc., etc. But that's obviously not quite so. So, in Mem Zion, he says the following thing. This is the Chelik. There's 2 Kolokim in the Sefer. Mine is red and blue. So in the red Chelik, Avodah Social Hagar. What was the role of Hagar? Well, I'll make it easy. If I was to say to you, what was the relationship between Avram's? So I think I told you once before. I was 3 times invited by Manchester University to do a PhD. And my chosen subject, something I've always been very interested in, and I think it'd be important to actually do a PhD and or somebody to do it, and write a book on this, is the subject of slavery in Halacha. Now, there is no slavery in Halacha if you understand slavery the way that the world understands slavery.
I'd love to read it.
Yeah, I'd love to write it, but I'm writing another book at the moment. It's a bit complicated. So anyway, so basically, there is no ultimate concept of slavery if you're understanding the American slavery in the South, or slavery in the Roman Empire, or the ancient world. I mean, it's a very strange form of slavery that you are my non-Jewish slave because you've been taken in battle. That's the only way I get you, and now I'm going to make you, I treat you so badly that if there's only one bed in the house, you get it and I don't.
That's by everyone.
No.
No.
I think it's an Nebuchadnezzar as well. I'd have to check. Okay. I think I'll check. You might be right. Okay. It's certainly not the sort of like the sort of terrible slavery with branding people and and torturing them because they run away and stuff like that.
You beat them up in the street.
And you beat them up in the street, etc. Fine. Okay. That's that. So it's a different thing altogether. What is the idea? So when we use these words, and again, it's so important to emphasize. There's the translation is crucial. I've told you before, there's no such thing as a synonym in Lashon HaKodesh, but getting the translation right, sometimes a word, what Eved means, what Eved Ivri means, that phrase, Eved Kanani means, you and I know what Eved Kanani means, and you just said some examples, that poof. But if you just translate it in English, it just says non-Jewish slave. Oh, the Jews believe in non-Jewish slavery, one that if you assault him, then you've got to let him go, and it doesn't make sense. And taking in a Jewish slave, of course it's open to abuse, and we had that in one time in Jewish history, but leaving that aside.
What was that?
After Korban Bastration, when they let the slaves, the Jewish slaves go, they have to bring go, and then they took them back as slaves again.
Oh.
Yeah. So I mean,
Achal.
but it's possible to abuse anything, but it's not that the system demands that. People are bucking the system. However, so when we say the word Eved, we think the word Shifka when we're talking about Hagar, or we talk about Eved when we're talking about Eliezer. Then what was the relationship between Avram and Eliezer? How do you understand? So he says, listen to this. Avoida shall Hagar etzon gabeta Sorah. The avoida the role of Hagar in relationship to Sarah, Hoysa kamoi oisa avoida shall Eliezer etzon adon of Avram was identical to the relationship between Eliezer and Avram. Doila umashka metayash rabba lacher. He learned. He was the Talmud Mufak of Avram Avinu, and Hagar was the Talmidah Mufekis. She was the outstanding discipless of Sarah. Talmud Neman Kaif L'Rabbi. Any faithful Talmud, you, me, to our Rosh Hashiva, you of course subserviate yourself. You give kobod, you give primacy to your Rav, and that says in Pirkei Avos, and this applies to you and me. You don't speak before your Rav speaks, etc., etc. And even at the end of his life, when Avram Avinu gave Eliezer reshus to open his own yeshiva and teach Avram's Torah, then Lo Omer Dova Shelo Shama B'Pi Rabba. He never said anything that he didn't hear from his own Rebbe. But Yeshiva Sohosa Rak Onaf Yeshivas Rabba, and it was only a branch of Avram Avinu's yeshiva. So there's the Mir in New York, and there's the Mir in Eretz Yisrael. I'm not sure it's actually a branch. I think they're independent, but you get the idea. You get yeshivas with smaller branches, but it's connected to the source. Became Hagar, and that's the same with Hagar. Hoyasa kol yomim metargumuna shel Sarah. She was the shamas to the Rebbe. She explained. She said over the shirim of Sarah. I mean, she explained what was going on. What Aaron was to Moshe, as it were, when it came to teaching Torah. What Eliezer was to Avram. And that's what Hagar was to. So the idea of it was this Jewish woman, and she had this Egyptian slave, and they had a fight, and it was women. No. We're talking with Drake, we just can't believe, as he's going to go on to say. Remember, she sees angels. Hagar sees angels. That's quite a madriga. Alafarish Torah's Gevirta it didn't say here, and when I read to you in the Pasuk, when she runs away and the angel sees her, she doesn't go ah. And if I saw an angel, I would go ah. But she doesn't say that. She was used to seeing angels. She was in Avram Avinu's house, and even without Avram Avinu's house, right? She was an incredibly high madrig. Okay, she was the assistant. She was the disciples. That's quite a good word. I think we'll claim that for ourselves. Alafarish Torah's give her to explain what the Rebbe meant. What the Rebbe. Yeah. You don't like disciples, huh? Okay. When the princesses and the queens came to Sarah as they did, Unplugging. Boss the Limba Masora that they came to learn from Masora. Aber Kershis Roimamol Madriga Zulias Ishal Avram. But when she was elevated to become a wife of Avram, Gevira Kumaisora, and to be a Gevira, now she's a Rebbe as well. Sounds a bit modern. I was interviewing somebody in Burpart last night, and they was telling me he's a Boba, but I didn't know there was a big split in Boba. So there's two Boba Rebbes, and that's quite common these days. So it was a bit like that. She's that Rebbe, and I'm also, okay. The Sorah House of Shalechas and Matron is the Shah B'Shalom. And Sorah used to send people to her. There's millions of reasons for that, anyway. She thought to herself, her egos, we'll see in a second, Rabbi Dessa became inflated, and she thought, do you say in America, the bee's knees? No. It's an expression, the bee's knees. She's the bee's knees. I don't know why. It means you're the ganze Kanaka, but you're the equal. She now sees herself as the equal of Sarah. Now she's no longer subserviating herself to Sarah. Kamoi Eliezer Avram, as Eliezer always did to Avram. And she started to say her own Taras. Aha. Now again, I don't think she's sort of saying, we should all be going to eat pork or something like that, but it was her own spin. I was, don't know if you...
Was she Jewish?
What?
Or was she Jewish?
Were any of them Jewish? How do you define Jewish? Yeah, as Jewish as Avram was, she was, because she'd become, she's a Geras. She's a Geras to the Torah, the pre-ordeal Torah, the Torah before it's commanded. No, Shasa Bachron, that's right. If you went upstairs, you would see in my study a picture of one of my old rabbis, Rabbi Yonah Balkan. It was him who introduced me to the Alshich. Gosh, I'm not quoting the Alshich today. That's very unusual. Anyway, so I was once, when I went to started visiting Manchester when I was a teenager, and because Glasgow didn't have much Yiddishkeit, to put it mildly, and so that's where, anybody who was serious about Yiddishkeit really had to leave, and it's the same in all sorts of small towns, really. I moved to a major centre. So when I moved to Manchester, I was very, very blessed indeed that one of the greatest teachers in Jewish history in England was somebody called Rabbi Yonah Balkan, and he was a fiercely independent ex-Gatesheader. I think he was 70-something when I got to know him. And he took a liking to me, and he said he would teach me, and he taught me every night from 6 o'clock to 1 o'clock in the morning for a year, to get me, so I could catch up to be able to get to Gateshead Yeshiva. Because you don't really go straight from Glasgow to Gateshead Yeshiva, and Gateshead is quite a Madriga, really. And that's where, and he was like a father, really. And because the Alshich, as we know, we certainly know, the Alshich can sometimes, last week's Center, I think he asked 40 questions, 40 or 20, I can't remember, on the first two psukim. And he's brilliantly insightful as to why it's the masculine, why it should be the feminine, the singular should be the plural. So one week, you were going through the psukim, and he said to me, "What's wrong with that?" Oh no, sorry. He said, "Oh yeah, any questions?" So I chapped one of the Alsh's questions. So that's really, you get into a certain madriga when you actually get the Alsh's questions. The answer's a different story, but it's quite a madriga when you actually start to spot the problems of the psukim yourself. Problems in inverted commas. And then I can't remember what I said, but I remember suggesting that maybe the solution, the answer to why the Pasuk said what it said, is because something else that Rashi said in last week's Sedra. He's blind in one eye, Rabbi Yonah, big white beard. He looked at me and went, "Very good." And he slammed his fist on the table. He said, "Don't ever do that again." Only had one Talmud who made up his own Torahs, Louis Jacobs. Now, Louis Jacobs, you've never heard of, but Louis Jacobs was, Rabbi Dessler writes about him, the first English-born Ilui. Rabbi Dessler considered him to be pshoof. And maybe he was, and maybe that's why he went off. And he started the conservative movement in the UK. Right. Basically, the conservative here is like reform, so I don't know what you would call it. But it was definitely he wrote a book, Reason to Believe. He didn't believe in Mount Sinai and lots of other stuff. And there was a whole big war in Anglo-Jewry for many years. over this fellow called Louis Jacobs. And in his autobiography, I never read it, but he writes that the pedagogue par excellence of his whole educational experience was Rebbe Balkan, our joint Rebbe. But he made up his own Torahs. Why is that a problem? The problem is because it's not Torahs. And no matter how closely you try and emulate what the Torah is saying, unless it's the Torah, in other words, the real deal, Hashem's ideas, not your take on it, there is a danger. I've got a son who's a big Talmud Chacham who doesn't like this idea. And of course in Yeshiva we do make chaburas and you say over your Chedushim and stuff like that. So it must be... Sorry?
How did Rav Desolate write from?
That's an interesting question. Would you...
His novel ideas.
Yeah. Would you say that Rabbi Dessler was taking classic ideas and simply brilliantly put them together in a new way? But there's nothing... A Chiddush of Rabbi Dessler is his essay in Bechira complete... I don't know. Interesting. Yeah. Oh yeah, and a lot of Tzaddik go and a lot of Hasidic as far. He was a call boy. He had everything in there. Anyway, let's get back to this. But there's a danger clearly in. Remember, I told you the story about the Ariane space rocket. Told you the story. The Ariane space rocket. The Europeans, they put satellites in space using the vehicle called the Ariane space rocket. It flies from French Guyana, so South America. Basically, when I said this in my speech to the Scottish Parliament 3 years ago. But basically, the Ariane space rocket, they needed to upgrade it, and they moved from the Ariane 4 to the Ariane 5. And it was carrying. That cost, I can't remember. It was billions of euros, just in getting, developing the craft. And then they had 3 satellites on board. And of course, satellites are, 5 cents. So it was at the launch site. Enough of it. This is the way I heard the story originally. So basically, when it was about 5 miles up, it was going off course. So they had to press the self-destruct button. Now this is very embarrassing because the whole world knows this is your spaceship. It's not good for NASA. Not good for the Europeans either, or anybody, especially if you're the guy sitting on board the thing. But anyway, SOF called SOF. They had a big investigation as to what had gone wrong. Now, if you look at the bottom of space rockets, they've got 4 nozzles. And on board, there's a computer called the attitude control, or for the Ariane space rocket, the attitude control. And this is a computer which these things move, right? The spritzes. That's the thrusters. This is the technical term is spritzes. So the spritzes. That means it goes because we move to left, to the right, etc. So they found out, I memorized this at the time, which I thought was quite fun. They found out that the whole problem was a computer programming error. And what was the error? It was 0.00000000001 of a millimeter. 0.000000001 of a millimeter. To which you say, big deal? It's nothing. You need a microscope to see that. But over time, and over distance, over space, that tiny nothing becomes exaggerated, and the ship starts to go off course. That you wouldn't see at the beginning of the first mile, the second mile, the third mile, but when it gets to the fourth, then it becomes. If there is a mistake, then over time and over distance, it is going to be exaggerated, and what might seem, if we were listening to the Torah of Hagar, just like if we were listening to the Torah of Esau, remember he was the twin brother, who talked and learning with Yitzchak. I don't think I could talk and learn with Yitzchak. You and I might well become Hasidim of either. Well, don't know if you can become Hasidim of a disciples, of a protege, yes. But you get the idea. It was not so clear cut, but it was clear cut to Sarah. So listen to what he says here, because it's very important. Lo ha'isa k'fiyas oid l'Sarah. So she's no longer paying. She's no longer occupying the role that she had before of being the disciple of Sarah. Well, as Avrohom, as Eliezer was the disciple of Avrohom, but Haskell l'chadash devarim midata, and she started to make things up, her own Torahs. And no longer is she explaining and expanding on the Torah of her mistress. And not only that, she started to disagree with Sarah. And she said to the Matron, listen to me, I know Pshat. Sarah told you that? And I'm the real Tzedekah. Go back to the Rashi. Yeah, she only appears like the Tzedekah. I'm the real deal. I'm the one that's pregnant with Abram's child, not her. Below Sarah, but he got him Sarah. She's great. She considers herself greater than Sarah. She's also looking around me Avram because she got pregnant from Avram. Sarah, and but and that's when Sarah intervenes. Why? Now listen. She brings this woman and takes her and gives her to her husband. No wife wants to give away her husband to another woman. Each one, the relationship with each one is a tzara. It's painful, but for the chesed for her and the chesed for Avram Avinu, she's willing to do this. That's great. Her Ibergegebenkeit, that's another technical term, her willingness to give up on her life or her wants for the good of Torah and Yiddishkeit and the Kavod of Hashem, that's boundless. Al chai kavud b'tzara lo chosaklal. Al hakol b'yisir, on that and more. B'shvil asiyas chesed, because that's chesed. Aval al emes, al ha-Torah, lo haisei al chabater. But an emes and the Torah, I can't compromise on that. I can't compromise on that. We have to deal with that. So she comes to Avram and she challenges Avram, and Avram says, okay, fine, it's up to you. And then it's strange that she's the Ramban, because if it's such a bad thing she did, I just thought just a second, why does the Malach say go back and submit yourself to more of it? Sometimes it's a good thing to say to the boy in the class, what's your father's name? Is it Rabbi or Mister? She's going off the derech. She has to deal with this. She thought nothing she could do about it. Now that she's a wife, she speaks to Avram, and Avram says, no, you can do this. A little bit more. From Hagar's point of view, who now considers herself to be the greater of the two, to have and be told that you've now got to listen to what we're telling you, Musar, and you're not the big cheese, and there's nobody as great as Sarah. Sarah is greater than Avram, etc. That was as bitter to her as eating a lemon. She couldn't do it. And that's why it says, it doesn't say, can I just point that out? It doesn't say here that she threw her out. As I did to that boy today. V'tika Sarah ishes Avram es Hagar hamitzvus ishkosa miketz es Hashanim, and she gives it to Avram. Then, V'yama al Avram Sarah hine shivchasek b'yadech osela ha'tzoymin. Do whatever is right. And then, but to now Sarah treats her harshly. That's Musar. She takes steps to make sure she can't be seeing herself in that way. But tivrach bepaneha, she ran away. She ran away from a status that she had thought she had left behind and was refusing to go back to be tachas, under the control, to be subservient, to be second best to Sarah. So then along comes the Malach and says, no, that's the right thing to do. If you want to grow, this is it. Sometimes, if your Rov turns around, I remember, funnily, I was talking to Rabbi Walker, I thought about this just yesterday, funnily enough. I remember one night, look, we're all human beings, and sometimes, you're tired, sometimes you're grumpy. And I can't remember, but he was obviously not in the best of moods, and he gave me something, for something I've done, and I told him. So what was my reaction? I remember my Rov, the Gate said Rov, funny, I was thinking about that as well. Once, my nephew, my niece married a boy. We made a Sheva Brachas in Gateshead. I made the Sheva Brachas, and no, my niece's father, that's my brother-in-law Ronnie Sher, he was quite a wealthy fellow, and he used to he supported me when I was in Gateshead Yeshiva for many years. So this was our chance to pay it back. So we made a very nice Sheva Brachas. In Gateshead, everything is in those days, nobody had any money at all. And everything was it was all the same. You made a Sheva Brachas, there's more or less understood, you invite no more than 30, 40 people, it's in your front room, etc. But we took the show hall, and it was a big thing, and my nephews were there, and they made a whole Ganser Makida, and the boys come in with candles, and they made a whole little dance, which they rehearsed. So I went to see the Rav a day or two after that, and he said, I heard you made a Welt Sheva Brachas. No, from the get-go of that was like, right. That was enough. No, if it was about Gaiva, I could say, yeah. Or when Rebbe Balkan showed him, and I could have walked out, but that's Gaiva. Or are you going to turn around and say, you know what? Maybe if your Rav tells you 1,000 times no, you've got to go back for the 1,001st time for it to get to forgive you. If you really got Amunah in your Rav, or your Rebbe, or your Rosh Hashiva, and he is the sort of tzaddik you believe him to be, then it might well be, if your Rav tells you your right hand is your left hand and your left hand is your right hand, you've got to believe him. Does that make any sense whatsoever? Absolutely no. Not logically, except if you assume. Well, I told you, Simcha Basman said brilliantly, why did they choose that Moshe? Why did Chazal choose that Moshe? If your Rav tells you your right hand is your left hand, they could have said, if the Rav tells you black is white is black. Hot is cold and cold is hot. Fat is thin and thin is fat. Tall is small is tall. Why did they choose that Moshe? So Simcha Basman said something that was a gadlish. If your Rav's telling you that, you know what he's telling you? Turn around, you're going in the wrong direction. That means if I turn around, my right hand is now where my left hand, and my left hand is now where my right hand is. You have to be willing to invest enough Amunah in your Rav. Amunah Zalchoma means that your Rav, the one that you're mamish, a disciple of, if he tells you, turn around, you're going in the wrong direction. Does it make any sense? Not, maybe not. My Rav, the Gitzur Rav, told me several times to do things that made no sense to me, but it all worked out. What happens? The Malach turns around and says to Hagar, time to go back. And she cuts. Now the Malach's telling me this is the right thing to do, and she goes back. Rabbi Desta, finish Rabbi Desta. I'll get you out on time, traitor. So in this is Chelik Hey. So who knows? We might increase our Onam Hagar Basparo Ozo Kol Asher La'abiyah Lishtabed Et Tzor. So she gave up everything. Again, go back to Hagar as being a great person. She gave up everything, being a princess, living in her father's house, the most powerful man, the most powerful country at the time, Va'az, Bebesa Shel Avrohom. The Madrega, when she was in Avrahom's house, at the Madrega she was on Hayasa Regila Mamlachim, as I said before, she saw Malachim all the time. And then, Shuva Lechem, Poi, Imachamor, don't need that bit, anyway, fine. Okay, because she's also Oid Yosef, but when she goes even higher, and gets herself attached to Avram himself as wife. And not only that, as wife, but pregnant by Avram Avinu. Nifla bedakas shal his guys. She fell into, and maybe she didn't even realize it, a bit of gaiva. Bedakas v'lo gasa shahari adayin rasa malachim. Now it has to be that it was tiny and not big, because she still sees malachim. She still gets to see malachim. And then it got worse and worse until she no longer saw Sarah as being significant, or too significant, or below her certainly. And that Sarah has to intervene to teach her shiflus, her place. It's not that Sarah was angry with her, not she was jealous of her because she was pregnant. You've got to be shlemus in the midah, so you can't remain a novi in the first place. Now the Rambam goes on to say, but she couldn't take it, and she ran away from her. Also, es base of Rabbah, and she could not, and she abandoned Avram's tent until the Malach, in other words, Hashem says, go back. This is the thing. So then she was justified. So therefore, you'd have to say, to be miyashav both sides, that the Ramban's not saying she did anything wrong in treating her harshly, but maybe the Ramban is there was a micron over too harshly. And Avram Avinu, well, there's a lot to say on that. I suppose it rings a bell. What do you do if you've got a child in your house? You've got 7 children, and one of them is going off the rails and is a very bad influence. What should you do? Somebody told me what the Asher said, that somebody came to him last Shaila and said he thinks he has to kick the kid out of the house. And he said, no, kick the other kids out of the house and put all your effort into the son.
Whoa.
Yeah, whoa. And I found that quite a whoa myself, actually. According to that Shita, then maybe Taka, you could see that maybe you go the extra, I don't know. But at least, we're not going to, as it were, I've not found any brilliant ways of juggling these both together. Both seem to be literally black and white. But at least we should know what we're talking about. We're talking about such nuanced levels of Kedusha, and that's even Hagar. Before we get to Sarah, Rahman Islam to say that Sarah did something wrong. Chazal tell us that halavai, that our mitzvahs were like their reveras. Maybe there was something which we'd never be able to see. Alexi had an electron microscope that worked for Ruchnias. A tiny, maybe a little bit wrong, a little bit too much. Fascination. How to press it? How to press the button? You keep pressing it. It's going to have the results a little bit more. Don't know. But was it some terrible bad thing? No, it was the right thing to do. It was the right thing to bring her back and to let her go and set up her own Yiddishkeit, her alternative form of Yiddishkeit. It could be a complete disaster.
Why did Ron take her back?
Sorry?
Why did Ron take her?
Oh, so that's the thing. I mean, after so Yitzhak brings Yitzhak on one sheet, Yitzhak makes the Shidduch and brings Hagar back.
Well, the second time.
You say?
But the first time.
Oh, you mean sorry? Why did she take? Oh, you mean the second time she throws her out?
He sent her out to the
Yeah.
And Mal said go back.
Yeah.
Why did Ron welcome her back?
Oh, that's the point. She comes back to reoccupy her position. Sorry to make that clear. To reoccupy her position as Tachas. Sorry, Mena. Because she's accepted the Malach Todah. The Malach says, a Malach's just a robot. He's just a mouthpiece from Hashem. Hashem says, go back. This Inui, this. So he said to that guy today, was Rabbi Rubin too harsh with you? Maybe it was. But, if he came to me and said, and I was the principal, and I said, well, maybe it was a bit harsh, but he was right. So it's a bit like that. Malach saying, yeah, maybe a bit harsh, but go back, and she's right. Get rid of this gaiva. You're not sorry, man. She's the real deal. You're not. See you next week.